Hey everybody, and welcome back to TECSpertz episode 2. Today, before we jump into the last Campbell game, I want to let you guys know that this podcast is a collaboration between the East Carolinian and WZMB, and we are sponsored and very thankful for the Big Vape Theory for sponsoring today's podcast. As we're going to get right in, I'm going to pass it over to Brennan. What do you think? What do you see in last week's Campbell versus ECU matchup?
I mean, against Campbell, we saw probably one of the best games, if not the best game from Holton that we've seen in a long time. 17 for 20, 263 yards, and 3 touchdowns is no interceptions, by the way. No interceptions for the second week in a row. I know we talked about that being a point of emphasis for his season. But I think that game just shows that after being down to start the first quarter, that Holton was able to find his composure and really start to work the offense. Because in my personal opinion, I felt like we started kind of slow. Like we were down, it showed on the scoreboard kind of, but like after shutting them out for the last 3 quarters, it just felt like on the offensive end we were able to turn it up as the game kind of went on, and that's something that we kind of don't see out of the Pirates. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Looking at the end of the first quarter, we were down 10-7.
Yeah.
So definitely the momentum picking up going into the second, third, and fourth quarters.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's also notable for us to mention some of the achievements that he was able to make through this game as well, becoming ECU's all-time yards leader and the American Athletic Conference's all-time passing yards leader. Mm-hmm. So, notable accomplishments for him in this game. Definitely a big win.
Yeah, huge win. I think it's a big confidence booster. Even though it's Campbell, I think putting 49 points up against any team is a really big move. I do have to say I was kind of upset. I was nearly hit my prediction spot on the nose, but missed it by a little bit. For me, the biggest takeaway from this game is that we did put 49 points up against Campbell. Okay, because in the last couple of years, we have noticed that ECU tends to play to the level of competition that they are opposed with. Right, against teams like NC State will come out and play them 21-20 and play an incredible game. And so even after that game, we were kind of a little bit skeptical. We played South Carolina close. We let teams like, other worse teams kind of play with us. Charleston Southern last year played closer with us than they ever should have. Mm-hmm. Right, and so we've been known to play a little bit down to competition, but to come in and beat them 49-10,
yeah.
That was brutal,
yeah.
And we kept our starters in until maybe 10 minutes into the fourth quarter, or 10 minutes left in the game.
Drives.
Yeah, last 3 drives. So it was. I kind of like that from Mike Houston and the Pirates, is kind of keeping that pedal to the metal and not letting up. So for me, this game not only is a big win in the win column. Starting off 2-1 is a good move when you're trying to get bowl eligibility, and there's some talk about the way that you're playing. A lot of people are thinking, hey, if things go right, if you play this way against some better competition, you might be able to win conference. Right? I'm not saying I'm looking for that. I'm just saying this is a big step moving forward to it, and bare minimum bowl eligibility. Right. But it's giving me hope that when we talk about games like USF and we talk of games like Temple, that those should be those wins that we're talking about without having to worry, are the Pirates going to dip a little bit. We've been shown that Holton's going to come out and he's going to fire the ball. Mm-hmm. Even if he's going to throw a couple of picks early in the season, he's going to come out, he's going to fire it, go 17 for 20, 263 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And the defense is going to hold steady.
Yep.
Right? That's kind of my biggest takeaway. They're holding firm on their brand of football right now.
Yeah, it's really I feel like we've been talking about that for like the past 2-3 years, really, is that the offense has trouble keeping up with the way the defense is playing, because the defense will play their hearts out and keep a team from scoring 3 drives in a row, and then the offense can't get anything moving. But like I say here, I feel like they've moved their momentum only rose throughout this game, and it reflected in the scoreboard, and that it is a very big statement win for this football team to bounce back and become 2-1 after the first loss to NC State.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's also highlighted by the balance in the offense as well. You have a great run game as well as a great passing game, and they did keep that balance very well, because when Campbell was expecting the run, they were able to throw it downfield. When they were set up to throw downfield, Keaton Mitchell was able to pop off, Rajay Harris was able to pop off, and at the end of the game, Marlon Gunn Jr. was able to pop off.
Yeah, I was just thinking that right before you said that, Chris. I was looking at the stats, and we got Keaton over here leading the rushing attack with 13 carries, 185 yards, and a touchdown. But Rajay had an incredible game. And then at the end of the game, when I was watching, I saw the third-string running back come in and gash him for 20 yards, something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, they just can't – there's no answer right now.
Yeah.
Like, if that's our third-string running back, they were getting torched by Keaton and Rajay all day long. But usually when you look at a running attack like that, 185 yards, 13 carries, you go, where's the – that was their main attack for the day. But then you look at Holton going 17 for 20 with 3 touchdowns, and you realize – it was not a one-sided fight there. It was a double-edged sword and got him. With the passing attack that I really liked, they let Holton throw it deep a little bit more. The last few years, obviously, Holton being the starter, we've realized that that's been his bread and butter is the deep ball.
Right.
He's able to dish it off low, but he's not afraid to let that ball go deep, and that's how he wants to do it. And this week, finally, I saw that ball go a little bit. Go a little bit deep, a little bit more. Obviously, those 2 touchdowns to the pylon were huge. Wouldn't have counted on Sunday, but they count on Saturday, which is the only thing that matters.
Yeah, and they're well timed too. The play calling from
been very
the
good.
entire coaching
Very
staff
good.
has just been
Phenomenal.
on point. Just every time that we're sitting in the stands,
Right.
watching the game, talking about, he needs to run this to the right because
Right.
look at how what runs
to the
right to the right immediately. And then they're doing a lot more of that running on first down, like you've been talking about in the past couple weeks. I noticed that against Campbell. They were running on first down a couple more times and then passing on second down so that they can give themselves, the room to work.
And there's definitely a balance, right? And coaches know the game better than, how they want to play the game better than us. They go through the scouting reports. However, by running on first down, you're allowing yourself a little bit more options coming into second and third down rather than locking yourself into a pass, right? If you pick up 3 yards on first down, you can then decide if you want to go and pick something else up rather than if you go incomplete on first down, run it on second down, pick up those 3 yards, now you find yourself in a 3rd and 7. Right? So it gives you a little bit more options and lets that run attempt, get a little bit stronger. And we've seen that we got the guys to do it. I think Keaton's really been the beneficiary these last couple of years coming in with these large yards. And people almost forget about Rajay until he gasses you for 17 yards on a play that looked like there was nothing there for a touchdown at the end of the game. Like, the way that he bounced through that was a lot of Keaton's runs, he gets in a hole and he goes. And he's quick enough that he's able to get through there. Rajay, he's quick, but he's not as quick as Keaton.
Right.
So he has to be a little bit more of a dog through that pile and get into it. Plus, a lot of his carries are more garbage yards, right? And they give it to him straight through the pile, and he's got to pick those up because he's more of a power back. But seeing that running attempt from Rajay is now you got Keaton and Rajay, and they have to deal with not only 2 of the best backs in the nation, but they got to deal with 2 completely different style backs. Right. And getting those runners going, especially early in the game, early on their downs, I think that's, going to take pressure off Holton.
Right.
So that he doesn't feel under pressure, so maybe they don't rush as much so they could defend something. And he's not going to feel pressure to throw it up like he has in the past.
Right. I almost feel like he needs this kind of pressure. I feel like the pressure that he was feeling against Campbell and even against Old Dominion was a good kind of pressure in the sense that he felt like he needed to get the ball down the field, and he was able to do so. So now it's building his confidence in that manner. And we need to see that confidence sign of Holton going throughout the rest of the season if we want to get towards that bowl eligibility talk.
Right.
Yeah, along with having the 2-headed monster at running back, I think it's also important to note how many weapons there are at wide receiver and tight end. We had 9 different receptions for positive gains. 9 different players have positive gain receptions in this game. And that's only highlighted by Coach Houston and the whole coaching staff's ability to recruit.
Right.
Yeah.
So Isaiah Winstead's been huge. Jalen Johnson's been huge. Those 2 coming in the offseason, filling the void that Tyler Snead left behind in a better way than he was able to produce.
Right.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting that you said that. And because this is something that last year we were talking about this when Snead left, we were kind of like, what's going to happen?
Yeah, what's going on, man?
Because we're losing Holton's favorite receiver, right? Who's kind of a Julian Edelman type receiver. Who's it's a lot of slants through the middle of the field, right? And that's where he's picking up the majority of his yards.
And then CJ got suspended.
Right, and CJ got suspended. Exactly. So we were kind of questioning what was going to happen. We weren't sure if CJ was going to be returning, anything like that. But now that we got, now we're sitting here at week 3, and Tyler Snead's still a legend for us, but we're sitting here like, the team seems to be working around this different style of offense, right? Running backs are getting very involved. Tight ends are much more involved than they were last year. And instead of having CJ on the outside, like he was with Omatosho last year, we move him to fill that Snead spot in the slot. Right, because by putting him in the slot, he's obviously not as quick as Tyler Snead, being able to cut those slants maybe as effectively, but he's big and he's strong, so he's going to be effective on those slants. But not only there, but he can bump and go to the outside from the slot position as well, which gives you a little bit more options. Because Snead is not a receiver that you're going to throw it up to, right? He doesn't have the size, he doesn't have the jump, he doesn't have the height. CJ does.
So Isaiah does, too.
Isaiah does. CJ does. Jalen Johnson does, right? You got a three-headed beast. That's not even including your tight ends or your running backs. Right? And all three of those guys have proven that they'll come up with big catches. I want to say, Isaiah Winstead didn't have a touchdown this week, but he had 6 receptions for 112 yards. I know CJ had a big catch. Didn't he have that one toe drag swag? Yeah. Doesn't count on Sunday, counts on Saturday. So that's it's. I really like what you said, because we were sitting here last year wondering what was going to happen. Right. And it's kind of that next man up mentality, which they've been showing like some dogs.
Right. And I feel like it's putting that pressure we were talking about on Holton. It's putting more pressure on him, but now he's answering. And if you're going to continue to play like this, look, because now you can't play any different. Now you cannot get worse from this point. If you have a bad game, it's going to be very obvious that it's a bad game and it's not on our receivers.
He's got the boys. He's got the boys.
You got him now. You just went, you missed 3 passes on Saturday.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Threw 3 touchdowns.
There's a standard.
Right. Now you're going to set this standard. Now you got to keep it up going forward.
This offense has confidence. I think that's the biggest takeaway. Yeah. CJ on 4th and 2, they were going to throw the ball to him. Mike Houston said during the postgame press conference that the plan was always to get the ball to CJ because he had a great mismatch. They get a penalty. I forget who it was. Someone on the line jumped too soon. They get set back 5 yards. They do it again anyway.
Wow.
Instead of 4th and 2, you're facing 4th and 7, and you still trust your guys to make that play.
Yeah. And I think that's big, because I was sitting, and everybody loves to sofa coach, if you know what I mean by that. So everyone's like to say, oh, you should do this, you should do that. I was sitting with my friend in the boneyard, and we were talking about this, and we saw, the penalty, 4th and 2, we're like, go for it. Penalty, my friend's like, take the field goal and see what happens. I'm like, it's early in the game, you're playing Campbell. Is like, I really like that, Coach. Like, what's the worst that can happen here?
Just go.
Right?
Yeah.
Some choice words were said. Right? And you just go for it and make a play there. And like you said, trust your guys, see what happens. I think a lot of this is coming from the confidence, right? And one of the things is, yes, we've played State, we've played ODU, and we've played Campbell. Right? State's really the only nationally recognized team as being a really good team. Right? ODU does have Jennings, who had an incredible performance with the week he played us. Right? And the quarterback this week for Campbell had a great performance too. 23, 38, 300 yards, 1 touchdown and an interception. I think Holton overall had a more efficient game. Yeah. But they can't go overlooked what the Campbell quarterback was able to do with the defense that he was facing this week. However, it's not like we're getting wins for these teams. We're clobbering them, right? And we're putting up the points that we should put against them. So no one can say, hey, you're not really playing that well. Well, we're playing maybe bad competition, but we're doing what we should be doing to them. Right, and I think the confidence also comes from the fact that Holton knows that if he throws it up and he makes a bad play, right, which happens every now and then, unfortunately, right, if he throws it up and makes a bad play, that defense is going to come out and get 3 and out for State, 13 ranked in the nation. Right, and so there's confidence on both sides of that ball. That defense knows that if they get that stop, Holton will come out and continue to sling it. Right, Holton's not going to be scared if he throws 1 interception. He's proven that over the last 5 years, right, 4 or 5 years, is he's just going to keep slinging it. And so I think both sides of the ball are looking very well, creating a cohesive team.
Yeah, and they're going to have to continue that going into this coming weekend's game against Navy, the final game of our 4-game homestand before we finally hit the road. So we're playing Navy on Saturday at 6 p.m. We'll be in Dowdy Ficklin again. And Navy's 0-2. So I know we were talking about, kind of the competition that we've been facing, even though we beat the brakes off of Campbell. This is a game that we're probably going to have to go into in a similar mindset of we're going to have to really beat this team for it to be notable. Because if we lose this team, then we're 2-2, and then it's kind of like we'll just have to go from there. But if you want to get this win and for us to be 3-1 before we hit the road, make it dominant so that you can show that, losing against State wasn't as big of a deal as y'all say it is. And when they go look back at the scoreboard and we lost by
1 point versus State.
So it'll look better for us. Navy is 0-2. They lost 13-37 last week against Memphis at home, and then the week before that they lost 7-14 to Delaware. So yeah.
So Navy's a weird team. They're always a threat beyond what the scoreboard will show you.
Yeah.
Their triple option system is scary to any opposing defense, and it's something that is going to be a grind. Now, I don't think they are as good as they were last year, because last year they dominated us through 3 quarters, but we were just able to hang on to sail to the end for that kick to win the game.
Yeah.
But it's a team that it scares me a little bit because their triple option system, like I said, is not something that is, what's the word I'm looking for?
Orthodox.
It's unorthodox, and they play that to their benefit. And the coach knows the system well, the team knows the system well. We just have to make sure that we're ready to know the system well.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it's going to come down to grit. Like Navy, they are built different over there, being the men that they are. So even if they're not winning on the scoreboard, they have the grit and they're going to give it to you for 4 quarters straight. With that being said, they can't score points.
Yeah.
Right. Is plain and simple, they're struggling scoring points. So I think triple option being as it may, which is going to be difficult. However, I think if you have the same approach that you did in film study and scouting this week moving forward, I think you'll be successful.
Yeah.
Right. As long as they could hold points, let Holton make simple plays, keep play calling as it is, I don't think there's going to be a ton of changes made here. I think a lot of it is going to be focused on the defensive side of the ball to deal with that triple option, as you mentioned. But I think offensively, a lot of it is going to be kind of the same what we've been seeing versus State, ODU, and Campbell. This game, and I don't like saying this early in the year, but I think, in my opinion, this game is a must-win.
Okay.
Right. I'm not saying that if you lose it, it screws up your whole season. I'm saying that starting 3-1 is a lot better than starting 2-2.
It's
right, especially when all 4 of those games have been played at home. Right, you have 2 games on the road before you come back at home. Right, if you go 3-1, you're already halfway there to bowl eligibility. Right, and the 2 games following on the road are 2 winnable games. Right, winnable. We're going to take on USF, and then who do we take on after that?
We'll be taking on Tulane.
So we take on Tulane, who might be a little bit better than maybe we've been thinking, but overall a team that we could beat. So we're saying that after the State game, 5 straight games are winnable. Right, but you need to take advantage of the games that we have at home before we come back for homecoming. Because the game after the Tulane game is Memphis for homecoming, right?
Yes, it is.
Could you imagine going 5 straight wins and then Memphis having to come to Dowdy?
Look, it's just something that's scary. You know what I'm saying? Like something that does not happen for ECU often, and you don't want that kind of energy in Greenville, coming into Greenville for homecoming.
It's one game at a time, and Navy is just a speed bump.
Yeah.
Right. I don't want to say this early that this team is a Cinderella season, but this team is special.
Yeah.
It's special. It is.
They like you were saying, they got that confidence. They got that swag on them that they kind of they walk in the building and they know that they can hang with anybody. And they can beat anybody. After the way they played against State, they know now that they can beat anybody. Because they're sitting across from State like, oh, we can hang with State. They were in the locker room saying we could beat State.
Hey, we held them scoreless in the second quarter.
That's what I'm saying.
Half.
We got on the field and you're looking at the way their play style. Oh, now we play against this kind of team like this and we're losing by 1 point. Oh, yeah, we're not losing to Navy, Campbell. You know what I'm saying? Like, they need to walk in with that kind of confidence.
Those really are great points. I mean, it really is. I think that's ECU in a nutshell.
Yep.
I mean, when has ECU, even for baseball in some aspects, baseball is kind of the top dog here. However, we have Texas, and we are still the underdog. Right? It's just that underdog mentality. Everybody looks over. It's Eastern North Carolina, in Greenville, South Carolina. It's it's fake. Right? It shows that underdog mentality coming into it, and that yes, we can hang with anyone. Right? And I think it comes from the city of Greenville, and I think a lot of it is this football team particularly. We can't. Last year we said the defense was young, and they are still young, but then we have those core pieces on the team like Holton and Rajay, who have been here for 3-4 years now and who are really starting to make their stay here. So you got that nice mix of veteran mentality with a lot of young guys that don't think they should be losing.
Right.
And that's why they don't.
Right.
Right. I always say there's nothing more dangerous in sports than a young team that doesn't know they should lose.
Mm-hmm.
Right. If you don't think you're expected to lose and you think you can hang with anyone like we did versus State, I mean, Navy's in for a long week.
Right.
That's all I say.
All right, so let's get these scoring predictions out there. Chris, you want to go first with your scoring prediction?
Yeah. So one more thing I want to add about Navy is I think this will be the first time that we see a defense that is able to hang with us for 4 quarters.
Okay.
So with that being said, I think it's going to be a very low-scoring game. I don't think we're going to see a bunch of statistical feats out there. So I'm going to go 14-6.
How out of character for you?
Wasn't it last week 70
points?
70-3?
Hey, I wasn't far off.
It wasn't bad for how ambitious it was.
True.
It wasn't bad.
Yeah, 14-6. I'm going to say we're going to secure that 3-1 record and take a conference lead in Dowdy.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Love that.
I mean, they did show that they could hold, it's Delaware, but 14
Right.
points. So.
Right. Yeah. I'm thinking it's somewhere. I feel like we're going to throw up a couple more points than 14.
I agree.
I do think it's going to be a long – well, okay, it may not be long, but it's going to be a boring game that's on the ground almost all night long, like all night long. But I do feel like if you give our defense the idea that they just need to focus on the run, it'll end their drives sooner than we think. And I feel like we'll be able to score on them. I'm going to say probably 35-14. I'll say 35-14.
Yeah, that sounds pretty close to what I was going. I think there will be some points, scored from us. Maybe not early in the game, but I think we'll wear them down a little bit. And so I am going to go also 35. I'll go with a little bit of a different score. They seem to be like in 10 a little bit, so I'm going to go with 35-10. ECU taking the 3-1 record going into their road stand.
Cool. 3-1 going into the road stand. Sounds great.
Sounds great.
Sounds beautiful.
Sounds really good, as opposed to starting 0-2 last year.
Yeah.
Then having to fight back for some Marshall and a heartbreaking loss for them.
Coming back 5-1 sounds even better, though. That's going to be insane.
All right. One game at a time. Looking forward to homecoming.
Yeah. Moving on, we got a couple games coming up for the rest of this week for other sports. We got soccer, who is playing Houston at home tomorrow at 7 p.m. for the Healthcare Worker Appreciation Game. And then soccer will also be taking on UNC Greensboro on Sunday at home at 5 p.m. for the Club Sports Day game. And then volleyball is at Tulsa on Friday at 5 p.m. and Wichita State on Sunday at 1 p.m. Yeah, soccer and volleyball have been doing well. Soccer just recently lost to William and Mary, but other than that, they're 6-3-1. Yeah, 6-3-1, so they're doing pretty well.
They've been on 2 3-game win streaks. So far this season.
Yeah, they're doing pretty well over there. Volleyball is 5-7. Just recently coming off a win against Mercer before they lost to Maryland, but they are doing pretty well before they face Tulsa. I think that wraps about up.
Anything else? Wonderful. So that wraps up today's episode of TECSpertz. Tune in again next week while we discuss our USF game, first road game of the season. Thanks for tuning in. Signing off.